D'Angelo is an opinionated local sports editor who has made a name for himself thanks to his beard.
That's a serious beard you got going on. I mean, you're heading toward Doug Dynasty, but well-groomed. That's a good look. If I ever did that, that's the look I would go for.
The other guy is a guy who takes no prisoners when it comes to sports.
Let's stomp these dudes.
Together, they bring you the best in Oklahoma State sports talk and opinions on sports from around the country.
That's right. Listen up. Hey, listen up. You.
It's Jason Elmquist.
Today, I'm a mild-mannered reporter for the newspaper.
And Patrick Wheeler.
I'm a very dangerous man.
This is the Afternoon Sports Drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
That's what I'm talking about. Sport.
You ain't never heard nothing like this. Let me work. Show me where the mic is. I'm on stage, black shirt and my Timbs. You know how I do it. I ain't playing with you. I've been grinding. Anybody trying to sleep on me, better do something with your eyelids. I hear a lot of whining, but I don't hear a lot of rhyming. Whoa. Everybody got opinions.
Welcome into the Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler here with you on Monday as we begin a brand new week. Jason Elmquist is off this week. You've got me this week. We'll have Tom Dorado later on in the week as well. So a lot of good stuff coming on. Also, with today, oh my goodness, I'm not going to fill everything up here in 2 hours. So much going on. This was a crazy sports weekend, and we just got started with Major League Baseball back in action. Real, actual Major League Baseball. Real, actual scores that count towards the standings. And I'm going to get into that. There's so much to go into with Major League Baseball. As we all know, the Miami Marlins are in the top news story today. We'll get to them in a second. Kind of a landscape here of the show. Also, the NCAA on Friday, after I was off, went in and voted on whether they would move towards trying to cancel fall championships or not. Tell you what came of that. One NBA player over the weekend made a big no-no while he was allowed out of the bubble. The NBA starting up very soon as well. And the NFL is actually one step closer to getting started, as the NFL and the NFLPA have officially come together on pretty much everything in terms of getting started with the National Football League. So a ton to get into with that. First things first, Major League Baseball. Going to start off with this because it is the lead story of the day everywhere. So the weekend happens. Major League Baseball goes down as planned. Pretty much, everyone kind of got a chance to see their teams starting on that Friday. And I'm going to get into some of the actual gameplay here in a minute. But obviously what took over the news today and early this morning was the Miami Marlins coming out and saying that they have at least 13 positive tests for the coronavirus right now, which obviously sent some people into a frenzy, saying, oh my gosh, we can't have a Major League Baseball season, we can't have sports, this is what happens. Now look, before I get into all that, let me just say this. Leave it to the Miami Marlins. That was one of the things I thought of first, was leave it to them. Being the team that is kind of laughed at with everything else, it's like, of course. It just so happened that tonight they were scheduled to home open against the Baltimore Orioles, like the two worst teams in baseball, the Miami Marlins and the Baltimore Orioles, don't get to play their game tonight, and no one really wept. But look, here's the thing. I think Major League Baseball is doing well so far. They didn't jump out to a crazy conclusion. They haven't come out and made any drastic choices yet, and that's a plus, because this is an easy opportunity for them to come out and say, look, we tried it and we couldn't go. It's one team. It's one team right now that is facing all of this with these 13 positives. The bad news is that according to reports, the Miami Marlins had 3 players they knew were positive before the game started and held a team meeting and decided to go ahead and play. I'm not really sure if there's anywhere in the handbook that says how to handle that one for Major League Baseball when they all meet and they say, you know what, we're probably good to go. It's one of those cases where, look, if you know you've got some positive tests, you just can't go forward with it. Because something like this is going to happen. When you do get an outbreak, then the news is going to leak by somebody that, hey, they actually already knew about it. And how does that make the Miami Marlins organization look? I mean, you can go back it up with, look, we know this virus isn't crazy dangerous to these guys, but still, that you just can't take that risk, So when you know about it, it's going to make the organization look even worse. I think Derek Jeter and the Miami Marlins are in a tough spot right now with a lot of this going on and not in their favor. The big key here is the Philadelphia Phillies. The Marlins played the Phillies over the weekend. The Phillies are immediately being tested, all their players, for the coronavirus. If these tests come back mostly negative, which I'm cautiously expecting, because we are learning more about how this virus is transmitted, there's social distancing for the most part between these players, and while we know that immediate contact doesn't necessarily mean the virus is going to be transmitted. So, with that being the case, since from my knowledge, none of these players embraced in a long hug or tackled each other or anything like that, I would have to think probably isn't going to be this huge outbreak amongst the Phillies. But, worst case scenario, if it is, that's where you're going to start having issues in terms of, are we going to have to stop the league or postpone the league or, God forbid, cancel the league? Because then you're going to get those people and that come out and say, look, it's easily transmitted here, and we just got a bunch of players transmitted from 2 different teams, and now we got to stop. But if the Phillies tests come back relatively negative for most of them, then you can also prove the point that, look, we can actually have a season. Oh, and not only that, we can get guys test positive and even go through with this. Because bottom line, if it's one team that's testing positive with these tests, a bunch, like an outbreak. If it's one team that has an outbreak, that's not a huge deal. It's doable. Major League Baseball can maneuver around that, and they know that. But the optics of this, if the Phillies players happen to come back and there's also an outbreak on that team, is not good. Because you've already got plenty of these people on social media and sports media coming out, running around with their hair on fire saying, look what happens when we had sports. We knew we shouldn't have done it. And where is everyone else that's saying that going to? Where they've gone this whole time. Oh, it proves our argument. We can't have college football. We can't have college football. I've seen that everywhere today. Look, it's not like positive tests weren't expected. When Major League Baseball is not playing in a bubble, there's an honor system at play here. There's an honor code. When these players are sent home at the end of the day, you have to trust that they're taking the responsibilities and taking as minimal risk as possible to not get the coronavirus. Because as we've seen, if it started with 3 positive players and ended in 13 players and coaches total, then yeah, it's going to be easily spread. But here's the thing. I don't think it's so much that it's just spread from, like, for instance, hand-to-hand contact, that type of thing. It's from the facilities being used by these guys on the surface, all of this. To me, it's not, hey, let's shake hands, let's break all these protocols. It's being around each other for a long period of time. Social distancing, probably not taken serious in the locker room, behind closed doors. Let's be honest. So, with that being the case, Major League Baseball, they know that, again, if it's one team, there's something that they can handle there. The bad part about all this is we know who's in charge of handling it. Rob Manfred is an absolute wreck. He is the last person I could think of that I would want making decisions regarding the season. Now, he has some interest in keeping the season going, but still, it's Rob Manfred. Some of the decisions he's made in his short time have been head-scratchers at best. They leave a lot of people wondering. So initially this morning, the news comes out, and immediately a bunch of dummies hopped on Twitter and said the season's going to be canceled. You've got your verified reporters, quote, air quotes there, saying that this is next. I'm getting word that the season's going to be canceled. But I thought to myself immediately, there would be no reason to. There would be no reason. You're really going to have to cancel a season when you got one team testing positive and all these other teams are out here still being able to play. We got games going on right now. So I don't think that this affects the season in terms of just canceling it or not. Now, again, if the Phillies' entire team just came down with the coronavirus, then we're going to start having some issues. But that seems pretty unlikely. a ton of stuff going on in Major League Baseball this weekend. First of all, besides all that, it was just good to see actual baseball counting again. It was extremely unique. I mean, I know I talked about it Friday morning when those first two games were on Thursday night, but actually getting to sit down and watch my team and see how the production was put together, it was just different. But I will say this. It looked to me, at least in the Cardinals games, that everybody was taking this seriously, taking the protocol seriously. I mean, you saw the Anthony Rizzo, first baseman for the Chicago Cubs, he's handing out hand sanitizer at all the opposing players that came to first base, the Brewers there. I think pretty much everybody else is taking this serious. Now, look, it could be the same thing, okay? There could be guys on the Marlins team that did their best to not put themselves in situations to get the coronavirus, but I'm really curious because how long until we find out that 2 or 3 players or that pitcher that initially got it was out at some club or somewhere it wasn't supposed to be in Miami or wherever else? I mean, in Philadelphia. Is that where it happened? I mean, initially, think about all the places these guys probably got this. And again, that goes back to the honor system thing. You have to trust your guys when you're not around them. It makes me think just like football, college football. We've talked over and over about college football players not being responsible possibly when they're away from the facilities. Well, what about professional players too? These guys are also human. But look, I would think that the incentive of keeping a Major League Baseball season together in one piece, especially after everything players and ownership went through in the offseason to even get to this point, I would think all of that would make players be ultra responsible or be willing to make changes to keep a season going. I mean, that's just me. If I were in that situation, I would be probably taking pretty good care of myself. Also in terms of, I wouldn't call it necessarily a quarantine, but keeping away from everybody. If I'm a professional baseball player, I'm not taking my chances here. And again, we don't know. These guys may have been doing the best they could, like I said, and still got it. But I'm going to err on the side that some of them were probably out there partying, doing whatever. They are Major League Baseball players. And they may have got this thing from who knows where. So contact tracing as much as possibly that can be done will be important. I'm kind of curious to see what the fallout is from some of these players if they ultimately admit, yeah, we were doing something we probably shouldn't have been. Oh, and yeah, we probably knew about it the whole time we were doing it. We probably knew we shouldn't have been doing it. That's gonna be your excuse. So again, tonight, 2 games have already been postponed: the Marlins and the Orioles, and the Philadelphia Phillies and the Yankees. Obviously, the Yankees not wanting to come in that visitors clubhouse where the Marlins were. Look, I saw the news too where they said, you know what? We told the Yankees that we had disinfected this clubhouse 3-4 times. So part of me is like, I think the Philadelphia Phillies and the Yankees game probably could have been played since that dugout was disinfected multiple times, but I get it. Because even if you take the chance of playing and 1 guy, 2 guys gets it, look, I mean, even that's going to look bad. Even that's going to look bad. If the Yankees were to go in there and next thing you know, they are starting to test positive, the snowball is going to continue to roll and form and get bigger and bigger. But anything you're hearing about canceling a season because of this, I would listen again, because I don't think that's going to happen. Truly don't. It would take multiple teams. And even then, people are asking now, well, what do the Marlins do? Well, they're going to have to go to their taxi squads. They're going to have to go to their backups, their reserve players. I think you do that, obviously, before you try to forfeit a game. But look, worst comes to worst, they have to miss multiple games here. Just put some double headers towards the end of the season. Don't tell me that can't be done. I mean, if one goes to extra innings, so what? We already got this stupid rule where you get an extra guy at second base. Yeah, it's stupid. It's really bad. Happened over the weekend, and I'm not a fan. Like many Major League players, by the way, are not a fan of this rule where you get a runner on second base to start extra innings. It's no good. So you put a couple of doubleheaders at the end. Make sure the Marlins still get a chance to play. Look, it's not like they're going to go anywhere this season anyways, but you still give them that chance. And that's it. It's really not a hard solution. This is not warranting a crazy response to, we got to stop playing, we got to shut everything down, we can't have sports. It certainly doesn't warrant the response that I'm seeing a lot of. See, this is why we can't have college football. Because that was the initial response by a lot of people. That for some reason, don't want college football to happen and don't want sports to happen. And a lot of it are sports guys, or at least I thought. It's crazy to see. All right, when we come back, I'm going to actually talk about some gameplay. Yeah, because there were actual games that were played this weekend, and there was actual action going on. So many storylines from the Major League Baseball season. Later on in the show, the NCAA Board of Governors met on Friday to discuss the fate of fall sports championships. Now, this does not, again, I got to make this point, make sure everybody understands, this does not include the FBS. They are not governed by the NCAA, but it does include the FCS. We'll talk about all that. Also, one player in the NBA decided to take a little detour while he was allowed to be out of the bubble. I'll tell you where later on. Still to come in the afternoon sports drive.
Levitating off the blacktop. Used to struggle getting started, now I can't stop. Used to be the quiet kid in the sandbox, now it's hands up every time that your man rocks. They ought to stop me coming in again. You mad? You thought we
Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
You're too fat for the sharks that you're swimming in. From where I'm sitting, contenders are looking like fruit spinning around in the blender. Hardly as
Patrick Wheeler here with you on Monday. The Monday after opening weekend in Major League Baseball, and boy, was it eventful. Boy, was it eventful. A ton going on. I got to say this in regards to what the MLB is doing in terms of response to all this. An emergency meeting is now taking place today. There was a scheduled meeting anyway between Rob Manfred and the Players Association, the owners. I think a lot of it has to do with content in the meetings, probably like, look, we need to relax here. We need to be patient. And we need to make sure we're not making too many drastic decisions. Because as I said earlier, look, it'd be really, really easy for Major League Baseball to say, you know what? We got to stop. Or we can't do this anymore. That would be like a really easy cop-out. But they understand that after a weekend in, some of this is expected. Now, maybe it wasn't expected as early as it happened, but positive tests and the occasional outbreak on a team probably expected. Now, I would say if it wasn't, we'd be talking about a different outcome here, but it was. And I'm about to tie this in real quick before I get to what happened this weekend in some of the games, but I'm going to tie this in with the Big 12 commissioner. Because Bob Bowlesby was asked by a writer in Des Moines, Iowa, said, hey, how does this affect college football? Talking about the baseball situation. And his response was pretty simple. He said, quote, if we are advised that it is okay to play the football season, we should all expect that there will be such disruptions, end quote. I mean, yeah, that is, look, Bob Bowlesby deserves a ton of credit. This entire time, he has really done about as good a job as a commissioner of a conference in college football could. With questions that are thrown his way, with ever-changing situations. Imagine being in his shoes for a minute here. You know how many questions a day are thrown his way about are we going to have football or not? And like he really knows. I mean, look, does he really know that much more than a lot of other people this time? I don't think so. He's learning as we are, but guess what? His response has been fantastic. You know, he's done a really good job of staying calm and patient in a situation that can easily warrant anxiety and people to say things and rash decisions and say things they probably don't mean at the time. But not Bob Bowlesby. I mean, again, he's sticking to the guns of, look, when we're going to have a season and we're expecting some disruptions. I mean, that's been the case from the beginning with college football here, was we know they're going to play. We know there's going to be some sort of season here, at least for these Power 5 conferences and definitely the Big 12 and the SEC and the ACC at the moment, believe it or not. But we're also expecting a form of disruption amongst the season. An outbreak on a team, too many players getting in, and we have to forfeit a game or postpone or whatever they got to do. You know, multiple teams. I think already a disruption we're seeing is the Pac-12 and the Big Ten making their decision. That's a disruption. So that's why my credit goes to him and Greg Sankey still, and the ACC, because even when something like this happens, they're like, look, I think a part of it too is they're sitting back and saying, we are watching what Major League Baseball is doing, and so much of what we're trying to find out here is going to be added to our defense playbook. They're taking a long look at sports that are getting going, dealing with situations like this, like Major League Baseball is now, and finding out how they handle them at the pro level and seeing how much can they copy at the college level. If Major League Baseball were to come out and say, we're done, we can't play, how do you think that would make college football professionals feel? You know, commissioners in college football would be like, oh my, are you serious? You know, how much does that rub off on them on making those decisions? So it's all trickling down, but I really respect Bob Bowlesby still remaining patient in these times. Because it would be really easy, as I said earlier, to not be. Perfect example, look at the Pac-12, look at the Big Ten. They weren't patient, and for all we know, by the time college football rolls around, they could be the ones looking dumb by canceling so early. The Big 12 also coming out and saying, you know what? An early report was they have 2 weeks left before they're really going to make a decision. So, yeah, I heard a caller earlier today on Robert's show saying, how long do you think it will be before the Big 12 makes a decision? Look, it's going to be last minute. And that is 100% with reason. And I get it, and it makes sense to me, as it should to everybody else, that we know enough about this virus, we're learning enough how to deal with it, that it only makes sense to wait a couple more weeks, as long as we possibly can, not just because that's what we want to do, but, oh, by the way, coming straight from Bob Bowlesby's mouth, it's what he's being told to do by medical professionals. By medical professionals giving him advice. He's adhering to that advice here, and I think it's going to pay off in the long run. So credit to him for sticking to his guns. I don't know how many people would do that in the same situation. All right, Major League Baseball. This weekend, I'm sitting there. I watched every single minute of every single game of the 3-game series the Cardinals had with the Pirates. I'm assuming my fan bases around here are probably St. Louis, Kansas City, probably some Texas Rangers. Look, the first thing I got to say is, you know, I watched the initial couple of games on ESPN. I kind of went on Friday and talked about the issues I saw with the production side of it. I got to say this, Fox Sports Midwest in St. Louis did a fantastic job. They piped in crowd noise, and it was realistic crowd noise. It wasn't the rise and fall, awkward, off sync like the video game being played over, and I think it was in ESPN's broadcast. It was the normal, you know, when you're listening, you're watching the game, you get that normal hum of the crowd. You always get that normal hum during an out, during a strike, during whatever. There's a little bit of a uptick and some roar in the crowd when good things happen, and they explode when something really good happens. Look, they did that almost perfectly. There were a couple times I could have sworn there were fans there. So I got to give a ton of credit to that team for the way they handled this situation. It was really good because, as mentioned by the broadcasters, said, you know what? We know that this is a game, but we're also, as a television station here, still trying to put on a product that's entertaining. And I thought to myself, you know what? That is really true. Because in this time, for those people that are kind of iffy on baseball, it'd be really easy to tune into a game. The production value isn't what they want during all this. They flip it and never come back. Well, I think that wasn't the case here. The fan noise was fantastic. The atmosphere was, there was no fans in the stands, but you really couldn't tell if you were just listening with your eyes closed. I think it was very well done. On Sunday, I knew this was going to happen at some point. Didn't anticipate it'd be in the Cardinals game the first time this happened, but we saw our first socially distanced manager to umpire argument of the year. And I got to admit, I think I died a little inside when I watched this. I say that because arguments between managers and umpires are still, to me, one of the most entertaining facets of sports in general. Because it's pretty rare in any sport that you're able to get up in the face and argue like you are in Major League Baseball. Think about it. You can't do it in basketball, really, anywhere. You really can't do it that much in football. You'll get flags thrown. But in baseball, it's all go when managers get in the face of umpires. So, sitting there watching the game, Pirates are up to hit, or are in the defense. I apologize, they're in the defense. And I forgot their catcher's name, but he's doing a really weird job of framing pitches. We all know really good catchers are good at framing pitches to where they can almost fool umpires. But this guy is catching the ball and moving his glove like an inch or two down or up in the zone. Like, it's not fooling the umpire. Now, maybe it kind of looks good from the other dugout with the Pirates, but I think that's what they were arguing initially. And turns out it wasn't even the manager that got tossed. It was one of the backup pitchers for the Pirates that got tossed. He's back there chirping. One of the relief pitchers or one of the other starters, I should say, is over there chirping, the whole time. And finally, manager or the umpire stops the game, immediately tosses this dude from home plate. Here comes the manager for the Pirates. Here comes the home plate umpire. He reaches in his back pocket, grabs his mask, can't get it on before the manager gets up close to him, has holding the mask up to his mouth, trying to keep it there. Pirates manager's pulling up his mask up and down, trying to get it in the right spot. They're staying 6 feet apart. Look, it was awkward. It was really awkward. And you can't get the same point across as a manager when you're arguing to an umpire 6 feet away. You need to be up in his face. That's part of it, is telling him what he did wrong, throwing some other words out there. That's what makes for a beautiful argument. So when I watched that happen, I thought to myself, you know what? If I was a manager, it wouldn't even be worth going out there and arguing. One, because there's no fans to cheer you on. That's part of the excitement. But two, I can't even get in the face of the guy that's making dumb calls. I got to stand 6 feet away and be like, hey, bad. That wasn't good. Hey, can you hear me under this mask? It's just not the same. I didn't like it. I think that other managers should take note and just argue from the dugout. If they get tossed, maybe you come out. But other than that, it was just really strange. Another part that kind of got me, now this one was kind of sad and funny at the same time. All over social media, you get pictures of these lonely mascots. Lonely mascots became the new fad. Every stadium, nobody in the stands, so you've got a mascot sitting there, and you can easily find him in the stadium, sitting there looking all sad. There's no one to cheer on. It was pretty funny. Those pictures are funny. Some of them were playing with the cardboard cutouts. Look, I got to say this about the cutouts. The first time one of these cardboard cutouts decides to move, that's when I'm out of there. Because these things are creepy. Downright creepy. I am not a fan. I want to see the virtual fans. I want that. I don't want the cardboard cutouts. Those are not what I thought they'd be. Too creepy. A lot of stuff this weekend in Major League Baseball, like I said. Justin Verlander. There were reports immediately coming out and saying Justin Verlander is out for the season. He gets on Twitter and he's like, no, that's not true at all. I'm still trying to get back in here. Don't believe these reports. So no one knows where they're sitting with that. And also, first time since 1954, no team started 3-0. That right there kind of highlights what a 60-game season is to me. In baseball, it's hard to go on a big-time run. It's hard to even win 3 games in a row. So there's going to be these ups and downs all the way through. That's why it's tough, maybe besides a couple of teams, to really pick a division winner and be confident in it. But guess what? We did see a lot of competition. You know, first game of the year, the Cardinals, I think all 4 of their, or what was that? I mean, the runs they scored, all but 1 were of the home run. I mean, it was right back to it. Everybody's hitting bombs. You see some guys get a lot of strikeouts. Trevor Bauer threw like 13 Ks yesterday for the Reds. I mean, so the competition is definitely still there. The high level pro action is definitely still there. And it was just good to see. That's why I've said from the beginning that if Major League Baseball or any other sport were to come back and be canceled again some way through, that's worst case scenario. That's worse to me than not starting again. Because you get something back and then it's taken away from you. I'd rather just not have had it back. Because it felt weird, but I was at least getting a little more comfortable not having those sports to go to all the time. Not having a game to watch every night. So it was pretty interesting. A lot of stuff coming out of Major League Baseball. A lot of fun. Fun to watch. I can't wait for the season to keep going. I have no doubt that it will keep going. I'm pretty confident that these Phillies players were not going to have some huge outbreak. Could be wrong, but I'm pretty confident. Also, let me end my Major League Baseball talk with this. If you didn't see, and I had to give Tom Dorado a little heat about this, because the Atlanta Braves are playing his Mets, and Austin Riley for the Atlanta Braves hit one of the biggest home runs I've ever seen in my life. Like, when you watch the replay, I promise you're going to watch it about 10 times. This ball went 458 feet, hit in front of the upper deck off the signage. I'm telling you, if that weren't there, that ball would have gone 500 feet. It was a curveball that was hung up. He launched it. And I said, Tom, that was one of the biggest home runs I've ever seen hit. And just so happened to be against your team. Then he went on to tell me about how the Mets pitching is no good, which I agreed. So it was pretty crazy. I just love seeing the home runs back. I love seeing the strikeouts back. It's going to be a fun race to the end. We all know the playoffs are expanded, so more teams are going to get in. But it's still going to be a lot of fun to pay attention to and watch. When we come back, the NCAA Board of Governors voted on Friday whether or not to go forward with fall championships. We'll talk about what their decision was and if it was the right one next.
Well, I'm not trying to get in the way. Minding my own, got nothing to say about nobody. That's right, nobody. Don't shake my tree, don't rattle my cage. You and me will be on the same page. Got no trouble. Don't make no trouble. Yeah, you best let a sleeping dog lie. 'Cause soon you come to understand why. Hey, you're gonna get bit right between the eyes.
Triple Play Sports Radio Network here on the afternoon Sports Drive coming your way. Patrick Wheeler with you on Mondays. We wrap up hour number 1. Look, the Power Fives here are going to play such an important role in getting things going with college football. So they're pretty thankful to not have to answer to the NCAA when it comes to yes or no on the fall championships. Now look, the FCS does have to. and all the other fall sports as well. So there was going to be the vote on Friday, and I said it, I can't remember what it was. It might have been on one of Robert's shows or it was on my other show with the Afternoon Sports Drive. I forgot which one it was, but I said at one point here that I would be very, very surprised if the NCAA Board of Governors ultimately made a decision, yes or no, on Friday the 24th, that we're going to have fall championships. Now, I also said I wouldn't be extremely surprised if they made some huge decision, for instance, not to do it, because after all, it is the NCAA. So no one would have been shocked, including myself. But they decided to table the discussions for August. Look, I'm shocked. I'll say I'm shocked because I kind of expected them to do what I just said. But at the same time, it's the right move. Big time. Big time right move. Now, I don't know about everybody else, but I'm starting to see a pattern emerge of staying patient. It's a pattern that started with the Big 12 and the SEC, Major League Baseball following suit, and now even the NCAA waiting before they make big decisions. Because, look, it would make no sense to make a decision that monumental right now. We all know that. How would you like to be a fall athlete sitting here on July 27th and you're being told that your championship that you have a chance to reach in November is already going to be canceled? Where does that put you as an athlete? How much do you really want to compete anymore? You know, it's the question I brought up with Oklahoma State basketball. When they have a chance here to be knocked out of contention for the postseason, it's kind of the same way. Because you're going to get the occasional athlete, you might get more than one, that's like, you know what, still worth it. But I still believe there's enough that would be like, hey, my goal is to win a championship. And that's it. There's still that athlete that exists out there too. So yeah, let me give a little bit of credit to the NCAA for waiting. As I said, also, in conjunction with that news, the Big 12 waiting 2 more weeks before deciding on what they're going to do. And I just think that's the right way to go right now. I'm just like everybody else. I would love an answer for sure right now, but I don't want anything to be rushed, bottom line. I think everybody else can understand that. Don't need these things rushed. These are huge decisions that will have long-lasting impacts. They're not going to just affect this year. They're going to affect the future as we know it in college sports. Because all college sports start with football. We know that. The NCAA, what they decide, and the FCS would be affected, that's going to affect a lot of schools. How much influence would that have on the FBS? The College Football Playoff Committee? They would take it into consideration. Now, here's an interesting idea. I have seen this floated, and we've talked about this a ton. But with the emergence of what happened in Major League Baseball, a lot of people are bringing up, look, that's what happens when you don't have a bubble around the sports teams. And, you know, I'm still not completely convinced in the NBA bubble. I'm still not completely bought in. I mean, I know they had 0 tests their last time through. But, you know, we saw what happened with Lou Williams, which we'll get to in hour number 2. These are, at least in pro sports, these are grown men. Some of it has to be reliant on them doing the right thing. And I think that has to do with the NFL as well, because today we also see the NFL, because now the talk is, should they have a bubble to avoid something like Major League Baseball is going through? And their response was, no, we don't plan on having a bubble. We plan on, and look, to their point too, they have a full season to deal with. Their season has no plans of being shortened. So they don't plan on doing it. They plan on trusting in their guys. And I think a lot of it has to do with that. So when you think about it, the idea of should college football have some sort of bubble, or at least the Power 5 schools? I'm not sure how you could really separate that, but think about it this way. The risk you would at least eliminate somewhat would be having a little bit of confidence in knowing that your guys most likely are in one spot. Now again, to get down to nitty-gritty details, you would have to have that bubble securely tightened, and I'm not really sure, though, how you would get away with it logistically, because you would get some of those players, believe it or not, we all know it would happen, that would say, hey, look, you can't keep me confined here. I signed up to play college football and go to college, not sit in one spot during the whole season, too. And there would probably be enough of that. There, you would risk the occasional team saying, we're just not going to play until you let us be free out of this bubble. So maybe it causes more problems than it would fix, but it is still kind of an interesting idea, because if you could get all college football players somehow, okay, Power 5 at least, you could get them compliant with sticking into this bubble situation where it means bubble to field, back into the bubble, all of that together. So you would extend it to their housing, to the field, and back. Imagine being in that situation as a college player for a full season. So logistically, I understand why it probably can't really happen, but I also see the argument of, if it did, it might have a better chance of things going smoothly. Some guys, obviously, there would be huge issues. I mean, I think that's going to be the case no matter what. But you get the teams like Oklahoma, like Notre Dame, like Iowa, that are coming out with these big-time numbers of very few positive tests, may just take it serious enough to where it would work. Can't count on that everywhere, though. But look, I think Oklahoma State has just about as big of an incentive as any team this year to stay disciplined off the field. I mean, if it were ever a time to do that, it would be this year, when everybody is back healthy so far, and a lot of confidence is in this team, not just from people around here, but national media and the Big 12 Conference itself. You get ranked second in the preseason polls. Look, you got a lot to live up to, but it's definitely doable. And that doesn't stop there. The limit isn't there. The sky is the limit to this team this year. I know Oklahoma is a huge obstacle, but Oklahoma State has the right tools to overcome that obstacle this season. That's why, like I said earlier this year too, my speech would be, again, to these guys, if any time in your life you were to take something as serious as you ever have, make it be your discipline off the field. Please. It's going to mean having a season. Now, if I'm Mike Gundy, I'm saying, look, I don't want to baby you guys. I don't want to tell you what to do with your every move, because you guys are adults. At least some of you are. But come on. Do me a favor and pick up some of the slack here. That would be my speech. And I think, yeah, we all know the offseason problems, but there's enough respect still amongst players and Mike Gundy that they would listen to that and they would take it serious. And if they didn't, they'd listen to someone else on the coaching staff and take it serious. Because the message is the same. It's, if we want a chance at beating Oklahoma this year, because that's our goal, right? That would be my goal. I would come in with the idea that, hey, we're going to run it in the Big 12 in our schedule. We're going to take care of business. That's a given. Let's think ahead to Oklahoma. If we want that chance, then let's take that opportunity now to make sure we get there in one piece. The last thing you need is anybody from either side in that game testing positive right before that game. If you had players missing out from Oklahoma or Oklahoma State and big-time players at that, look, then what's the point? To me, all this would be a waste. Okay, if we were to get to that point in the season and Chuba Hubbard or Tylan Wallace or Spencer Sanders or Malcolm Rodriguez or Colby Harvell-Peel, or you go down the list, we're happening to get the coronavirus and can't play, then what's the point? Like, that's what you are working for this year. Now, not only that, you got a couple of guys I just mentioned that are working towards the NFL. They also got to keep that future in mind. So it's, you know what? Maybe if I'm Chuba Hubbard or Tylan Wallace, I do have a little bit extra incentive on top of my still college-based incentive to keep myself healthy, to keep myself responsible, and to get out there and have a full season. Because would Tylan Wallace and Chuba Hubbard, well, are they still going to get drafted even if they miss a game, the coronavirus or two? Yeah, absolutely. But is draft stock going to tank a bit? It just might. I think they're probably both good enough to where it wouldn't hugely affect them, but there are going to be some teams that go down the list of what happened during the season. They mark this as good, this was good, this was good. Oh, what happened here? Oh, they caught coronavirus way deep into the season, couldn't play against Oklahoma. Where do we put them on our draft board? Slide them just a little bit further down. Because this guy over here didn't, and he actually had a better season maybe because of it. Okay. See where I'm going with this? So there's a lot of reasoning behind everybody doing their part. But seeing what happened with Major League Baseball, the example might not be being set the right way. And I got to say this, I know they're not playing in a bubble, but I pretty much expected the NBA to have a lot more positive tests and a lot more at this time than Major League Baseball. Look, and a lot of it is just because, like I said, what these two sides went through this offseason. That was one of the worst back and forths we saw all offseason. Or I should say in history. That was one of the worst back and forths between players and owners we have ever seen, if not the worst. Why in the world, if you're a Marlins player in this situation, or a player in the league at all, would you put yourself in jeopardy of not getting to play, and then possibly your team not getting to play, and then possibly the league not getting to play? Why in the world? It's selfish, okay? If these guys actually put themselves out there in high-risk situations, it's selfish. Bottom line. Look, and it will be too for college football players. And I'm not saying that guys shouldn't get a chance to go out there and live their lives, because they should. I'm all for going out there, having fun, living your life. But in extraordinary times like this, where your actions can affect so much, I'd take it easy. Is that easier said than done? Probably for some guys, but I would take it easy. I think that's doable for a small portion of your life, okay? I'm hinging on the coronavirus not being this huge issue next year at this time. And that would also be my message to my guys. Give me this little part of your life. Let me put it in the grand scheme of things here. Give me this little part of your life. Be responsible. Think about what this could mean. And go out there and do your thing on game day. And be able to, because you were responsible when you weren't on game day. It's definitely doable. It's all going to rely on how much these guys, again, in every league, in every level, really want to play. Bottom line. All right, and we come back in hour number 2. One NBA player decided to take a little bit of a detour when he was allowed out of the NBA bubble for a funeral. I'll tell you where he went, what happened. This story is fantastic. That's next.
It's been a too long time with no peace of mind. I'm ready for the times to get better. racking my brain, hoping to find a way out.
Hour number 2, Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
Continue
With Patrick Wheeler here with you on Monday. So we get rolling on hour number 2.
It's been a too long time with no peace of mind, and I'm ready for the
We're ready for the times to get better. They're getting better. You know why? Because we have a story that involves a rapper, an NBA player, a strip club, and chicken wings. Times are getting better. This is a fantastic story out of the NBA. So we all know the bubble. We all know the NBA bubble has been the topic for a while now. You know, how are players how are they utilizing it within? How are they adapting to things? Are they trying to get out? Are they trying to sneak females in? All this has been the topic. So Lou Williams, better known as the sixth man for the Los Angeles Clippers, been around the league for quite a while now, was allowed to leave the bubble. He had a funeral to attend to. According to people on the internet, a photo was taken of Lou Williams, who decided on his way back to the bubble would make a stop in Atlanta at the Magic City Gentlemen's Club because of their apparently world-famous wings. A picture is taken, Lou Williams with this rapper whose name is Jack Harlow. Never heard of this guy. You guys know I like my hip-hop, but I've never heard of this guy. No idea who he is. Jack Harlow and Lou Williams taking a picture together. They come out. Harlow denies the picture, says that's old. That was an old picture. Everyone's like, dude, no, it's not. You can see the people wearing the masks in the background, for crying out loud. This was recent. So he goes to Magic City, gets wings. Look, that was the initial excuse, okay? Because it was, Lou Williams had to make a comment on this. He says, look, I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was just getting some takeout. I was getting some wings from the Gentlemen's Club, okay? That's it. Because we all go to the Gentlemen's Club to get our wings when we want wings. It's normal. I couldn't believe this. Look, do I buy that he stopped at Magic City with a rapper to get some wings as the sole reason? No, I really don't. Look, it's no secret that NBA players enjoy strip clubs. It's just not. It's been well documented over time. Look, athletes in general, but NBA players next level. It's been documented. There's photos, there's videos. It's out there. There's reputations. So Lou Williams, let's be honest, he stopped at this strip club for the obvious reasons, and then he got wings to back it up. This was hilarious because some people over Twitter talking about it. So much so, Johnny Manziel, we all know Johnny Manziel, right? Comes out and says, look, I've been there. No shock. That was my first response. Wait, Johnny Manziel was at this strip club? No way, yeah. And he says, no, the wings are actually really good. They were actually really, really good. Like, I believe that's why he was there. And then, as if this story couldn't get any better, Lou Williams has actually been to Magic City's strip club so many times that the lemon pepper wings are actually named after Lou Williams. A picture of the menu was posted online, and he is so well known for getting those wings when he goes to Magic City in Atlanta that he has the wings named after him. I'm not making this up. I fell out of my chair laughing at this story over the weekend. I just can't get enough of this story. So what are the ramifications, you ask? He has to quarantine for 10 days. He'll miss 2 games during this stretch, and roughly $100,000 will be lost because he's not playing in those games. And to make matters worse for him and the Clippers, look, he's actually an important part to this Clippers team. He's their 6th man. He's one of their top scorers. And the Clippers right now are sitting at a spot where they're 1.5 games up on the Denver Nuggets for that 2 seed. 6.5 games back of the Lakers for the 1 seed in the West. So they're vying for a better spot, and now you're telling me they're going to miss one of their best players in 2 games because he decided to take a stop at the strip club and get some wings over the weekend. Yeah, true story. Look, again, it goes back to my selfish thing. Like, Lou Williams' actions here will affect his entire team. And then on top of this, let me just say, it seems like I'm saying this about once a week regarding athletes and some of the things they do. I need to have a whole segment titled this right here. How dumb can you be? How dumb can you be? Athlete version. This time it's Lou Williams' turn. He's up to bat. Like, dude, there are people with phones and cameras on those phones taking pictures all the time. Did he really not think that he wouldn't be photographed? Now, is it possible that he was inebriated and wouldn't care at that point? Yeah, it's possible. But the fact that he put himself in that situation, that's where the selfishness comes in. There's a fine line between having to live your life and doing something that can affect so many other people. If this were any other time in the world and we weren't dealing with what happens when the coronavirus is a part of sports, you think I would really care or be sitting here talking about Lou Williams taking a stop at Magic City on the way back to the bubble? Or either on the way back to his team, I should say? No, because it'd be normal. I'd come on here and be like, guys, guess what? An NBA player went to a gentleman's club over the weekend. Everyone would say, yeah, so what? Next topic. So at that time, fine. If it's different, if it's normal, do you, buddy. And if that means going to Magic City, fine. But at a time where so many other people will feel the effect of your actions here, why? Why even take the risk? Why put yourself in that situation? I'm really confused by the mindset of some of these guys. And I'm going to get into more of this here in a little bit because the NFL passed their NFLPA and the NFL came together on terms with starting the season up, and something has to do with the same thing I'm talking about here. But it kind of makes me think back to what I was finishing up hour number 1 with some of these players, okay? I've talked about this before in college football. These guys, some of them that are so high profile, I mean, they're superstars. They're known by everybody. And look, I've only been here for, 5 months? 5 or 6 months now? And look, Stillwater is a small enough town that you're going to get noticed if you're a star football player, if you're a star basketball player. But also, the cameras are going to be flashing, the phones are going to be out, the pictures are going to want to be taken. So, just to add on to my already full of different incentives for not being dumb this offseason or during the season, how about the fact that you could be photographed or a video could be out there of you partying it up at the club, or you're down in the strip and you're doing something you're not supposed to? Shouldn't that also play in the mind of some of these guys to behave? Behave, is that the right way to put it? To do what they should be doing in terms of hoping to have a season or to continue a season? That's the mindset I try to put myself into, but Lou Williams is a perfect example. Because look, I know some of these guys are superstar college players, but you're crazy if you don't think that they still don't look up to pro players. Just like they would if they were little leaguers looking up to the big kids above them. It's the same thing. Some of these guys, I mean, they want to see how it's done. They want to see what goes on. And when guys like Lou Williams set this example, it's like, come on, man. At this time, can we just show a little bit of restraint? A little sense of restraint? And honestly, I wonder how much this makes the NBA question those that they let out of the bubble from now on. Because it's, hey, yeah, you say you're going to a funeral. Well, please don't stop at Magic City when you come back. Can't believe I'm having to say that, but please don't stop at Magic City when you come back. Like, dude, really? And look, if he was on one of these teams that didn't have a chance or didn't matter, then it's one thing. But when you're on the Clippers, who to me, in my opinion, have a good shot of winning the whole thing. But a lot of it depends on how you concede yourself now. I would be taking it a little bit more serious. So Lou Williams, I don't know. And then the thing that gets me too is like why the excuse with the wings? I guess because he knew that his name was going to be a part of it. He thought, you know what, they could prove that was the reason I was there. I mean, my name's on the menu, for crying out loud. This story is wild. It really is. The bubble, in other terms besides that, it seems to be going well. The NBA starting up here very shortly, a couple of days, right? And things seem to be going pretty well. Which, again, I'll admit, I'm proved wrong at the moment. Didn't buy the NBA bubble still, though I'm thinking it's not a great idea. But, hey, if they continue to get no positive tests, okay. Then fine, I'm all for it. If it means NBA coming back, fine. Look, I'm not this huge NBA fan. I'm not losing my mind because we don't have NBA. But I'm rooting for all sports to come back. Because we're getting a little bit closer to being normal in a way. And this is one of those parts of being normal, is having a sport like the NBA come back and proving to people that the bubble might actually work, believe it or not. Another good sign about sports coming back. A lot of the talk was, you know what, football is going to happen. Is college football going to happen? We're still talking about that. But people thought about, too, you know what, we've seen one sport that has had a lot of time to wait, think, weigh options, learn, adapt, understand. And that's the NFL. They've had all this time given to them by sheer luck. Just so happened that the coronavirus hit in full effect when they ended their sport for the season in 2019. Technically 2020, the beginning of the year, but we know the 2019 season. It's crazy how close that was. If you remember the story we talked about that was put out, it was actually the night of the Super Bowl in February that I think a couple of first cases around the San Francisco area or the Bay Area out there in California were found. That's pretty crazy, that timing. So the NFL's had a long time here. And I got to give them props because I'm very excited to see that the NFL and the Players Association have agreed on terms to move forward with training camps opening up with protocols in place. We're going to get to more of this here in just a little bit. An opt-out situation for players if they want to, and one player has already done that. But also, there's going to be a lot of other things at play here, including what happens when these guys get the coronavirus. Will they still get paid? Will it be counted as an injury? All of that was a big part of it. We had a huge NFL trade over the weekend we're going to get to. One receiver decided to tweet at other receivers and tell them he's better than them. You know, that's another sign that we're getting closer. NFL players and athletes are just taking shots at other athletes. They're like, you know what, we're going to have a season. I might as well call this guy out. That's always fun. But before we take our first break of the second hour, I think another good move is being made here by Oklahoma. People are like, oh, here he goes again. I'm talking about Oklahoma. Yeah, but I think something's going to happen here with Oklahoma State too. So Oklahoma is deciding that this game is going to be moved up between them and the opener here with Missouri State. This isn't the first time we've seen this. Some other schools have already talked about doing this. TCU is going to do it. Look, I think this is a good move. Said it a while. I've said it a long time ago now. But you know what? Why not talk about pushing the season forward? And I think it makes as much sense now as it did back then. Because a lot of the talk still in college football world is we want to avoid this possible second spike that everybody keeps talking about. And if there's actually enough fear in doing that, why not now, when we think we've got something in place, we think we might know how to do this, why not move up a couple of these games and get them out of the way? Look, and do you know how excited Missouri State is right now to see that Oklahoma's willing to do this? I mean, they're still going to get a chance at some money here. There's a lot of times where there was a report came out earlier this season. They were budgeting on not playing this game. They were planning their budget around missing the game with Oklahoma. And I talked to Art Haynes from Missouri State a week or two ago now, and he was telling me how important that was. how important that they get this game in Norman done. And look, I got to give credit. I mean, OU is willing to pay for this testing for Missouri State. They're willing to move the game up. They're doing what they can to not miss out on games and to also help out these schools in getting some money back. Missouri State needs this money. So it's a big plus. Now, how does this affect OSU? I think that moving these games up is the new norm. I think that this is becoming the new norm. We're going to see it across other schools in the Big 12 and the SEC. I'm pretty confident in that. With OU doing it, TCU doing it, who's to say that when Oklahoma State doesn't find their first opponent of the week, or of the season, I should say, that they don't move it up? I think it would make sense if they for sure want to get that game in. Do it. And again, this also even furthers the notion that the Big 12 is trying to and going to play a full schedule. There's no talk about missing out on these non-conference games. In fact, it's quite the opposite. We're not only not going to miss out on them, we're going to move the dates forward so we can for sure get them in. Look, that's big time. That's big time by the Big 12. I've praised them over and over, but they deserve all of it. They are refusing to give up on this. Where they've got, and it's a time where they've got plenty of haters and plenty of naysayers saying that they don't care about their player safety, all of this, and they're just drowning it out because they know it's not true. And if you were to go around and ask players if they were okay with playing, what do you think the response is going to be? It's going to be absolutely we're fine with playing. We are ready to go. We've been ready. I'm not afraid of this thing. We know it's serious, but we're ready to go. That's going to be the response. These guys want to get out there. Can't blame them. Can't blame them at all. So I think that's definitely where we're headed. We're going to see more teams do this. Again, I would not be surprised to see that Oklahoma State, when they find that week one opponent, because they will, they're still actively searching out options as we speak. And when they find that opponent, would I be surprised to see that they moved it up like Oklahoma to August 29th or around that date? No, not at all. Not at all. That's what's coming next. I'm willing to predict that. All right, when we come back, as I previously mentioned, the NFL and the NFLPA came together and a big step was made forward about getting a season going in 2020. I'll tell you what all that entails next.
I don't wanna wait for our life to be over. You haven't, but you take it how you left it. This is give and take. Take your time, take me under. I wanna know, but you show me what I'm missing. In the plane out of Southern California, running in the streets all day. I guess some of us just gotta learn the hard way. Don't give a damn, nobody gotta say we sell it now. I don't wanna wait.
Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler with you, hanging out Monday.
But you take it how you left it.
Hope everybody's having a great Monday so far. You're in the right spot.
Give and take.
We always got it rocking here on Triple Play Sports Radio.
Me under. I wanna know, could you show me what I'm missing?
Lots of ways to listen. 1020 AM, 1580 AM, 93.1 FM, 93.3 FM, and 105.1 FM. Triple Play Sports Radio app, wherever you may be. Long distance can get us here. I'll open up the phone lines as well. If you got something to say, let me know. 405-533-1020. 405-533-1020. All right, the NFL. The NFL, I think, has really done a good job in terms of player-owner negotiations. And I say that with the bar really not being set high at all by the MLB, but I guess it's just refreshing, I would say, to see two sides come together and also in pretty quick fashion. Now, yeah, there was that little bump in the road, kind of, honestly, if I'm being honest, really honest here, kind of annoying by the NFL players going on Twitter and saying, look, we haven't been told anything by the NFL. We want to play, but we feel it's not safe. Please tell us. And from the beginning, I never once bought that the NFL just never talked to the players, that there was no back and forth, that they just kind of said, go after it. Do I think Roger Goodell is pretty incompetent in a lot of ways? Yeah, but not to this extent. With everything going on and with the amount of time that the NFL had to work through things, I just don't think there was this good luck, go into training camp, hope nothing happens, do your best type of situation. And there wasn't. The NFL responded and said, we have absolutely been in contact with players. Maybe wasn't the best way. Maybe there wasn't as many details as needed to be, but it wasn't this one-sided deal like the players wanted to make it. So I never bought that. And I do give credit to the owners for coming in and basically doing what the players want. They get that daily testing. They got that going on. They've got all the other protocols in place. Well, now they've come to terms with starting up this season. And one important part of this new deal, these new guidelines, ties right back to what I was talking about with Lou Williams in the NBA. NFL players who are found to be attending high-risk events won't receive pay this season. I mean, that's exactly what should happen. Look, if you're an athlete, you can't expect to knowingly put yourself in a high-risk situation to get the coronavirus, come down with the coronavirus, and then expect a paycheck when you're not even able to work. I mean, it would be the same thing at any job. If your boss told you, hey, please keep yourself safe. We need you here at work. You're an essential part of the workforce here. Please keep yourself safe when you're not at work. You can do whatever you want and attend and run your life how you see fit. But if we find out that you intentionally were somewhere we've asked you not to be, and you get this illness and you come back, we can't have you work, well, we're not going to pay you. I mean, it's if you don't work, you don't get paid. It's really not too hard to understand. So players, this whole time, a lot of them were fighting for, if we get the coronavirus, we want to make sure we still get our paycheck. And look, if you get it, okay, and somehow it's within the facility or whatever, or it can't be proven that you were doing in a high-risk situation, you got it, fine. And they can't really help that. But the NFL and the players have agreed and made it clear that if it is found out, because what NFL teams can do is if a player comes down with the coronavirus, according to this new deal, if a player comes down with the coronavirus, teams can challenge this and do kind of an investigation and look in and see if players put themselves in what's defined as a high-risk situation. And I think that's fair. Because if this wasn't the case, it's just like in the NBA and Major League Baseball, pro athletes who are well-known, who have the fame and the money, are still going to go do what they like to do. And that involves going to the club. That involves partying. That involves going to fancy restaurants, all that stuff. NFL players or just professional athletes in general, mostly, if you look at them, they aren't designed to live a life by themselves. They're designed to be social, to have the ability to go out and be known and do it at the highest level and experience the highest levels of fame and fortune. That's what comes with it. These guys are conditioned that way. Most of them have been since college or younger. Think about it. A lot of these guys that are star athletes have been the star since high school or before. Everybody knew their name. Everybody knew who they were. Everybody likes them. Everybody praises them. Well, it's been that way all the way through their career. Now they're here at the highest level, and on top of everything else, they're getting paid a lot of money to do what they do. So if that weren't in the works, yeah, there'd be guys that would be living a normal life like they would any other season. They'd be at the club. They'd be at the party. I mean, and if there were no rule, and you were able to do what you want, came down with the coronavirus, and still were able to get paid, would you really blame these guys? I mean, other than what I've said about them being selfish, which it is, but would you really blame them? Really? All right, so this is what a high-risk situation is defined by the NFL. An indoor nightclub with more than 15 people. An indoor bar with more than 15 people, other than to pick up food. An indoor house party with more than 15 people. An indoor music concert with more than 15 people. A professional sporting event other than applicable NFL games or events with more than 15 people. An indoor religious service attended by more than 25% of a venue's capacity. So you really can't do much if you're an NFL player, but if you do, I mean, you take that risk. So much so that's even going to church. I mean, look, the players and owners are serious about this thing. Again, if I were in their shoes, I would be putting myself in a spot where I would not want to be at a huge risk, because now not only would I be risking losing some playing time, I'd be risking a paycheck. Which, I mean, that's not fun either. So if you find yourself in a place, now, does that mean that NFL players are going to be sitting around the club or the room counting and saying 15, 16, I'm out of here? No. We're going to be seeing some of these guys that inevitably will test positive, but at least it is in there where they have to hold themselves accountable, because you're crazy if you don't think that NFL teams won't investigate positive cases. With the testing that's going to be done, just like in any other major sport right now, with the procedures that are put in place with supposed to be social distancing and all that, you know, the health procedures, everything's getting disinfected and wiped down. I think there's going to be a pretty rare chance that you would catch it amongst a team in the facility. So when these players come back, and whoever the first one's going to be, there already have been some, but whenever the season starts and whoever the first one's going to be that catches it, the team does an investigation, finds out that guy was at the club, contact tracing comes back, and they can all but prove somehow, here, look at the contact tracing, yeah, they got it at the club. Well, there goes that guy's paycheck for that week, or however many he ends up missing. So it's something that I've asked for a while, because when the players came out originally and were harping for, we still want to get paid if we get the coronavirus, originally I said that's fine, but you can't just go out there, do whatever, knowing that you have a real risk of getting this, then coming back and expecting to get paid. Like, that's just not how it works. And I think players got to be held accountable in this situation, in these situations. That goes for everybody. It's a weird time. I'm not preaching here, again, to just sit here and not have fun, because I think a big part of being a professional athlete is having a lot of fun. But, again, we're asking for a little bit of your time here. Can you make this work? Also goes back to my whole phone thing. You know, Lou Williams got caught on camera. Well, if X name receiver right here is in a club, wouldn't someone probably be videoing that dude? So when an investigation is put into a guy that gets the coronavirus, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it probably won't be really too hard to figure out if they were in a high-risk situation. Now, according to these rules, if the video shows the guy jumping around the club or a house party and people are only able to count 13 other people, does that technically mean this guy's okay? That's technically not a high-risk situation. If you can only prove that there were 14 total people there, well, he might just skim by. It's pretty funny to think about it that way. All right, so another part of it was there's an opt-out. Just like there is all across sports, there's going to be for college sports as well. If a player doesn't feel comfortable playing, they don't have to. No sooner than this was announced did a Chiefs player, who happens to be the only player so far, opt out of the season. Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, he's the right guard for the Kansas City Chiefs, who also happens to be a Canadian doctor, opted out. And I mean, it was like really quick. So this tells me that he had this plan in his mind the whole time. And look, I don't blame him for it. I mean, if he really thinks, I look at it this way. Not playing with the Kansas City Chiefs, reigning Super Bowl champions, who is clear to see this year have a real shot at being back there. If it's that important to him that he doesn't want to take a chance of winning another ring here, then it's obviously got to be really important to him. He works at a hospital. He's been dealing with the coronavirus stuff this whole time. He never actually said that he's worried about getting the coronavirus, but he said if he is going to put himself at risk to get it, he wants to make sure he's doing it while helping others, which I can admire that. I mean, he takes his medical practice really serious. I'm not going to come on here and say LDT is wimping out. He has no reason to do this. Like, he actually has a legitimate reason to do this. Do I think opting out of an entire season with a reigning Super Bowl champion who, again, has a really good shot, at least on paper, to go back, is a little severe? Yeah, probably. But, again, I understand. You know, if anybody were to make that decision, it would be him. But I don't see this being a trend in the NFL. I don't see a lot of other players simply coming out and saying, don't feel comfortable. Don't feel comfortable for whatever reason. We all know how football players are wired a little different than other athletes. Tougher in a lot of ways. Not worried about as much. I mean, I think that's the case here. You know? So I don't really see this trend of players just not wanting to play football. You're going to get the occasional person like Malcolm Jenkins who likes to just talk out of his head all the time and say that they can't play without a vaccine. Or, you know, you're going to get the occasional guy that says, well, I don't really feel safe doing it, and then isn't really going to be able to back it up with anything. But other than that, I'm expecting a fairly normal terms of football season, at least in the idea of players still playing. So yeah, I salute LDT. I think we can all appreciate what he's doing. You know, he's out there trying to help combat this thing, trying to save lives, and trying to provide health care to those who need it most. So again, if he's willing to give that up, if he's willing to give up the Chiefs season, playing for a possible another championship, then it must be really important to him. And I get it. I'm fine with that. Fine with that. The Chiefs did sign, I don't know how to say his name, Kalichi Osamel. Probably just botched that, but I think he came from the Jets. They immediately signed him. Well, there's a lot of people that jumped on this idea of losing LDT is this huge loss to the Chiefs' offensive line. How will they fill that? They can't. Look, he really wasn't a huge part of the success last year. I mean, go back. He didn't really have a great year last year. Now, in the past, he's done a lot of good things for Kansas City's offensive line. But it's not like we're losing Mitchell Schwartz here. You know, that'd be different. This guy, you know, sorry, but he's replaceable. And I think the good thing is so far, for what we've seen response from the Chiefs, from the NFL, you know, it's been really nothing but respect, which is good. And they respect LDT for doing what he's doing, and I do too. But I am not going to come on and act like, oh my gosh, this offensive line is devastated. We have no chance now protecting Patrick Mahomes. That's just not the case. Although a lot of people have jumped on that train, which, again, go back and look at some stats. He really not that hard to figure out that he wasn't a huge impact player last year on the offensive line. So I respect him. I wish him all the best. I hope he stays safe, and I hope he continues to provide care where he is, because he's doing a great job. All right, when we come back to round out the show, a big NFL trade over the weekend. A blockbuster trade. Who was it? Was it good? Was it bad? I'll tell you next here on the Afternoon Sports Drive to wrap it up. Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler here with you on Monday, wrapping up the show. A lot of good stuff we got to today. There was a packed weekend in the sports world, and it's going to continue to be that way with Major League Baseball ramping up. Yeah, again, it was a bump in the road with the Miami Marlins, but it's not the end of the world for baseball. I'm confident in that. As much as sports media would have you believe, it's not the end of the world. And I will say this, I have seen a lot of people in sports media now that hadn't said anything about the continuous amount of negative coverage regarding the coronavirus in sports that have finally stood up and said, with this MLB thing, hey, this isn't the end of the world. Positive tests were expected. And I'm proud to see more people stand up and say, we got to stop doing all this negative reporting, all this fear-laced reporting, because there's actually a lot of good that is not being reported. You know, why am I having to dig to find the positive tests, or the positive reports, I should say, of no positive tests among some college football teams? Why am I having to dig for that stuff? Why am I having to dig for when we get a bunch of star players testing negative for the coronavirus? Because it sure as heck makes news when they test positive, but the other way around, it's crickets. So this was the case. I think so many people were fed up with seeing all this nonsense about we can't have sports, or we can't continue to play, because that was the immediate reaction with Major League Baseball, was, look, there were the same people saying, we told you so. We knew this couldn't happen. We knew that we'd have an outbreak. And all of us with logical brains in the sports world are like, hey, so did we. We knew there would be an outbreak. We knew there would be problems and bumps in the road. But the ones with logical brains and the ability to think for themselves understand that it doesn't mean that's the end. They understand that patience is key, that road bumps are to be expected, but the best part about a road bump is you're able to get over it. And that's the case here with Major League Baseball. All right, in the NFL, a huge trade over the weekend. The NFL loves to refuse to have the spotlight taken off of them in sports news. And that was the case again this weekend with Major League Baseball kicking off. Why not just get a big old trade in there and make sure people don't stop talking about the NFL? Jamal Adams with the New York Jets, safety, heading to the Seattle Seahawks for a ton. I saw this trade and I was like, wait, they gave up what for him? They gave up what? They gave up safety Bradley McDougald, a 2021 first-round pick, a 2021 third-round pick, and a 2022 first-round pick. They got Adams and a 2022 fourth-rounder for all that. Two, yeah, you heard it right, 2 first-round picks in back-to-back years. Like, wait, what? For a safety? Look, there's not a ton of guys that are worth 2 first-round picks. I saw this and I thought, we're acting like he's the best defensive player in the league. He's not even really the best at his position. Now, against the run, I think he's fantastic. If you've watched Jamal Adams in the past, he will get up and play the edge. He will blitz. He will stop the run like a linebacker. Against the pass, he's had his moments, but he's not lights out. He's not this ball hawk safety. Last year he had 1 pick six. But what this tells me is that the Seahawks are trying to regain the Legion of Boom. They want to get that back together. They trust in Russell Wilson, as they should. And they have a real shot here. Now, does this make them contenders? I think they were already contenders. I know the NFC has some good teams, but I think they were already contenders. I think they're better than the 49ers. They were a yard away from having a real shot last year. Remember, Jacob Hollister was stopped a yard short and was one of the best tackles I've ever seen. Stopped a yard short of the goal line in Week 17. I mean, they were that close. And I think Russell Wilson is vastly underrated a lot of times. The Seahawks have a top 5 quarterback. They have a lot of good options at running back, including former Poke Chris Carson, who's a beast. No, he got hurt last year, but he's a beast. No other way to put it. They got a lot of depth there. Their wide receiver positions are always good. Tyler Lockett is a monster. I think DK Metcalf is a rising star in this league. So, yeah, they have the tools. They have what it takes. And not to mention, say what you want about Pete Carroll, but he knows how to get it done. So, yeah, this tells me that the Seahawks are going after a championship right now. It's win or die right now time for them. And I get it. Look, I'm not trying to go back to this every single time, but it is true. The Chiefs are so dominant and have the ability to be so dominant. We don't see this that often in the NFL where one team could possibly separate themselves from everybody else like the Chiefs possibly could here. Say what you want about teams building up and adding players, but they're all chasing one team. Adding Jamal Adams to the Seahawks in the back of their mind was, hey, this will help us possibly get past Kansas City when the time comes, because they think they're going to be there. You're naive if you don't think that was in the back of their mind. I think it's a good addition, but I do think they overpaid. We love to talk about winners and losers of trades. I think the Jets probably won out, but it's going to depend how they use these first-round picks. We are talking about the New York Jets here. They aren't necessarily your ideal team to turn 2 first-round picks into stud players. So I'm not confident. It's highly doubtful in my mind that the Jets turn this around. I think Le'Veon Bell is stuck in that offense, by the way. He and Jamal Adams trading jabs on Twitter. Le'Veon talking about how he was clamoring to get out and come to the Jets, and they make it happen, then he wants to leave. Jamal responds and says, okay, see you week 14. That'll be fun. Just like I said, he's good at stopping the run. You telling me he's not going to be keying in on his former teammate Le'Veon Bell in week 14 this season? Ooh, yeah. That'll be a fun matchup. Jets, Seahawks, week 14. Circle it. But, you know, I just don't think Jamal Adams is worth selling the farm for. I think in the Seahawks' mind, he is the last piece to this puzzle, this Super Bowl championship contending puzzle. But if they don't get there this year or the year after, I mean, they're going to have to pay him if they want to hold on to him here soon. They're going to have to pay him a lot of money. And on top of all that, I think Jamal Adams is a wild card. You know, a couple days ago, he's calling out his former head coach when he was with the Jets. He's calling out Adam Gase and saying, hey, your leadership sucks. Like, you don't want to hear that from one of your star players if you're the head coach. You don't want to be called out by one of your star players publicly telling you how bad you are at your job. And I think the Seahawks rolled the dice here a little bit. Now, Pete Carroll has had a lot of success harnessing players with big egos and big attitudes. and I think can relate to them in a lot of ways. But all it takes is one time for Jamal Adams to get upset, go on Twitter and say Pete Carroll's being dumb and doesn't know what he's doing, and there goes your locker room. So, yeah, I think they rolled the dice a little bit here. On top of it, I think they overpaid by rolling the dice. Now, the payoff could be immense. A change of scenery, we know what it does for some guys, especially in the NFL. Jamal Adams could have a crazy season. He could go over and switch divisions here, go to the NFC, and have a crazy good season. He's going to be facing a lot of talent, but he could turn it around. I mean, he's actually got something to play for, because let's be honest, with the New York Jets, he had nothing to play for except his paycheck. Being a part of the New York Jets is knowing that every single season you have no shot at the playoffs, let alone a Super Bowl. You have no shot at the playoffs. Guess what? It didn't change. I think a lot of the eyes opened in that division when Tom Brady left, in that conference, I should say. But Cam Newton kind of filled that void. It's still the Patriots over there in the AFC East. Still the Patriots. But overall, if I'm grading the trade, it's probably a B-, harboring on a C+ trade in my opinion. I think the Seahawks, yeah, they got better, but it's only if they can actually sustain success this year. Now, this is by getting this guy, this is telling me it's do or die time if you're a Seahawks fan. I know a lot of people probably pay attention. They like to see how Chris Carson progresses. Well, I'm a huge Chris Carson fan. I was before I got here. I love watching him in the NFL. I think he's a fantastic runner, hard runner, dynamic. So, a lot of people that pay attention to the Seahawks, I think this is do or die time. Jamal Adams, is that the last piece? Does it work? We're going to find out. Can't wait for the NFL this season. It's going to be a lot of fun. Again, with the teams and the owners, the PA and all of them agreeing on everything, that's a big positive sign. That we're not only going to have a season, but we're going to have one on time. And besides the fan situation, we might just have everything be somewhat normal. Now, again, are we going to run into the occasional road bump just like we are in Major League Baseball? Sure. Of course we are. But if I can leave you with one piece of advice at the end of the show here for your Monday, it's to not buy in to the idea that sports have to be canceled because of what happened to Major League Baseball, or that college football can't happen because of what happened to Major League Baseball. Don't be that guy. Nobody likes that guy. If you are that guy, change it up, because you're going nowhere fast. This has been the Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler hanging out with you guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll be back here tomorrow, same place, same time. As always, you can catch all of our shows on the app live. Make sure you download that if you are not within range. If you're listening on the app already, it's a fantastic way to get it done. Hope everybody has a great rest of your Monday. I will be back here tomorrow, the Afternoon Sports Drive with Patrick Wheeler. See you then.